Next to me, I've got a couple plates from shootsteel.com. They're 12 by 20 inches and 3/8 inch thick. I've spent the last couple months out at the range quite a bit shooting these with a whole bunch of different weapons. We've used 870s, Benelli M2s, Glocks, M&Ps, 1911s, Tavors, ARs, 700s, the list goes on and on. So I've really spent some time putting lead on steel to try to get a good, accurate review of how these hold up and what I think of them. So in this video, we'll kind of discuss the review of the quality from shootsteel.com, as well as a few other things like why you might want to shoot steel instead of paper and some safety concerns involved in ringing steel. As far as quality goes, I have no complaints at all. They were very durable, stood up extremely well. The only time I was able to damage the steel was with a hot 5.56 load at far closer than I should have been shooting it. And there's a very tiny dent up here in the steel, but it was really impressive how it held up. The edges are cut very cleanly, and I've had a number of people comment that the edges look a lot nicer on these targets than a lot of other steel that they've shot. As far as sound quality goes, it's great. You can really tell when you get a good hit, no matter what distance you're at. So just to kind of demonstrate things, I'm going to give it a light hit with my flashlight here. And as you can hear, barely hitting that, very nice ring to it. The stands are also a great quality. They're welded, you can stick them to the ground, really good stuff. They use 2x4s, so if you shoot up the stand, in this case a 2x4, it's cheap and easy to replace. You can cut it to the correct height you want. The target then sits on top of the 2x4 with this hanger. There's a bolt that goes through with a spring. What this spring does is allows the steel to flex when it's shot. This keeps some of the jacketing and remnants of the projectile from coming directly back at the shooter. If you've shot steel before, chances are, if you're too close or the steel wasn't perfect, you've had jacketing come back. Generally, it's not a problem, but it can be dangerous depending on the velocity and how hard it hits you. As far as the mounting system from shootsteel.com, this is really wonderful. It's a little extra safety, it's easy to use, and it allows for the steel to ring really nicely. Shooting steel is a lot different than paper or cardboard, so you really need to keep safety in mind. Make sure you're shooting it straight on. If you're at too steep of an angle, you can cause rounds to actually ricochet off the steel, which is definitely not a good thing. Maintain a proper distance. When shooting steel, most of the jacketing of the projectiles will deflect about 20 degrees off, and in this case, with this bowing down, straight towards the ground. However, it can come back at you. So with handguns, I recommend 25 or 30 yards. Short-barreled rifles and subsonic rifle rounds, I'll go anywhere from 50 to 80 or so. And full-on high-velocity rifle rounds, 100, 125 yards plus. It really depends on the projectile you're shooting, but make sure you maintain a safe distance to avoid that jacketing possibly coming back at you and injuring you. So why shoot steel, and I guess why not to shoot steel? We'll start off with the why not. The big one is it's expensive. You're going to be spending $50, $100, $200, $300 on targets. However, they will last a lot longer than paper targets or, things like tannerite or whatever else you're buying to shoot. So expense is not that bad. But again, we're talking firearms here, guys. You're spending how much on a box of ammo, or how much on a new gun, or how much on that new fancy accessory to put on it. So looking at the big picture, I don't think it's that expensive. I think it's very reasonable for what you're getting out of it. So that could be a negative, but I don't think it's that bad. Whatever it costs some money, I think you should be spending that money on targets that will help you out. And that kind of bleeds over into why you do want to shoot steel. I said it helps you out. So there's a couple things that it helps with. One is if you're at close or moderate ranges and rapid fire, you know immediately when you start to walk off target and when you need to slow down and correct yourself. The feedback is very, very clear as opposed to shooting paper. Again, with long range targets, it's kind of similar. If you're going out 250, 300, 400, 500, 1,000 yards, it gets hard to see if you're actually hitting paper. With steel, you know when you ring it. It's very clear. So it's almost a necessity for me, if I'm reaching out distances, to be hitting steel instead of paper. I think shooting steel really can improve performance and give a lot of feedback to the shooter. So while it is expensive, I think that's a wonderful expense on training compared to a lot of other things to be a better shot. Plus, it's a whole lot more fun. And I guess if you've got a significant other complaining about how loud your shooting in the backyard is, everybody likes wind chimes. Just buy a suppressor and ring steel. It's basically the same thing, but it's a lot more fun. Final thoughts and feelings. If you're a serious shooter, either professionally, recreationally, competition, anything like that, I think you should own steel targets. And I also think shootsteel.com provides a very good product at a reasonable price. So if you're in the market for steel targets, I would highly recommend checking them out. It's a whole lot of fun, and I don't think you're ever going to regret the purchase of a good steel target.